Welcome to F1 or F Off, your audio pit stop for news, interviews, and race reviews. I am your host, Gabe.
And I am the other metaverse avatar, Idris. Before we started, okay, so we found out on Zoom today that you can make avatars and they will replace you in your video stream. And we were just playing around with it and they look kind of funny. Like it very much.
No, they look terrifying.
All right, yeah.
They look absolutely horrible.
Yeah, what's up?
This is so scary. I don't like it. I do not like it. Although I do look like I would be. I don't know. I look like maybe one of those. I don't know. What do I look like? I feel like I look like a blogger for kind of like.
Yeah, you look like a Gen Z. I don't know, like a Gen Z coffee barista. That might just be all coffee baristas, though. Honestly, there's a look. There's a look.
Yeah, look, it's getting my head tilt. It's like, welcome to the podcast.
Yeah,
I'm trying to do the horrors like head snap. It's not that fast. Okay.
Yeah, so if you aren't watching the YouTube video, then you are not seeing this. I highly recommend you watch it. It is hilarious. But I'm gonna pop off of this because it is definitely a little bit of nightmare fuel.
No, how do I get out of this? I lost it. Oh no. Okay, there we go.
There you go. There you go.
That's so terrifying. I don't like it.
But talking about things that actually look good in real life, Gabe, I see you are donning your excellent Liquid Death
let me
shirt
stand
here.
Let me stand up for the camera.
Oh yeah. Murder your thirst. I love it. I love how these guys just like lean into it. Like,
do you see it that it's a hearse? It's like a racing NASCAR hearse. I love it. I love it so much. Yeah, we were at Spencer's and I was just like, I just made a beeline for it because this is like a great crossing of my enjoyment of Liquid Death as a beverage and also, you know, sort of as I enjoy the things they do as a company.
Yeah.
You know, like they donating, 10% of their proceeds to cut plastic down in the ocean, and like just making a beverage that's not like full of a ton of chemicals, you know, and like they're just delicious. They also have, and this is funny too, they have a new drink that I've been drinking. I don't understand because it's sort of like an Arnold Palmer, but they already have one that's called an Armless Palmer. So maybe that one is just like lemon tea, and then this one's actually iced tea and lemonade.
Yeah.
But they call it the Dead Billionaire, which I think is just ridiculous, but also okay. That's
okay.
funny.
Okay.
But yeah, no, it's just that's a perfect cross section. I also have another one that's like Scream like Ghostface, and it's like that as a NASCAR shirt. Yeah, I'm into it.
They should do a collab with Ghostface Killer from Wu-Tang Clan, because Wu-Tang, they ain't nothing to mess with, and I definitely censored that for the PG audience listening. If you want to know, Google Wu-Tang Clan and you'll know. You know what it is. Wu-Tang's for the kids. But yeah, we are here today to talk about something very exciting. A race that happened in the land down under, and
Christmas has arrived early.
Oh baby, oh baby, and let me tell you, it was worth not taking a peek inside my parents' closet for the gift, because it delivered.
Yes. Yeah, no, I'm very fortunate that I didn't, because sometimes I'll do that. I will hop on my phone on Instagram, and then I'll get a giant picture of like someone cheering, and it says P1 as big as possible. I'm like, no, can't you be more subtle about it? Like,
Before we hop into this, actually, this is a really good point, and here is a question for our listeners: do you avoid social media like the plague when it's a race weekend, because you don't want to see quality results, you don't want to see race results, you don't want to see even times from the free practices? I can tell you for myself, and I know Gabe feels the same, we avoid like social media like the plague, right? Like,
I do my best to.
Yeah, there was a while where actually I would only like subscribe to Formula One subreddit in the off season, and then as soon as the season started, unsub, because I just couldn't trust myself to just pop on a Reddit and then not see something from the Formula One subreddit. And also just with the increasing popularity of F1 now, everyone's tweeting about it and texting about it, and I just don't. Yep, just don't even go on the internet.
I didn't for years. I mean, like, to be fair though, like while I was watching early on, like there wasn't a lot of social media, like 'cause
Yeah,
that was Bernie Ecclestone
not like
basically
it is
being like,
today.
no, you can't,
Hmm.
So yeah, now it is today. I don't even follow anybody on my personal Instagram, although I still get stuff pushed to me, which
Yeah.
I'm not a fan of. But obviously we follow them all on our podcast social media. So
Hmm.
sometimes I'm logging onto my phone. I'm not realizing that I'm on the podcast one and not my own personal one, and
Oh,
then it
yep.
pops up.
Gets me
So
too.
that's kind of
Gets me
how
too.
that's been happening. So
Yeah.
not ideal, not great, but
Yep.
it
It is what it
it is
is,
what it
man.
is.
It
It
is what
is.
it is. Um.
Well,
So
anyway, yeah, let's get into the race, Idris.
yeah. Or dude, wait. Before we even get to the race, we have to talk
Okay.
about one of like the most unprecedented things I think any of us have ever witnessed.
Hmm.
Either of us have ever witnessed in the sport. And we actually posted a question on our Instagram, and Elizabeth Blackstock of the Deadly Passions Terrible Joys podcast
Hmm.
gave a good response to
Shout
that.
out.
Just talking about, yeah, shout out. Just talking about like how rare something like this is happening, right? Like
Yeah.
not that it doesn't happen, and what it is that we're talking about, or in French you say qu'est-ce que c'est, for what it is at least. I forget the rest of it. I think parley. Qu'est-ce que c'est parle? Qu'est-ce que c'est
Hmm.
partout? Anyway, um, your boy Alex Albon, he bended in free practice, like really
Yeah.
bad.
In the same way that another driver binned it at the end of the race. Same corner, same way, but we'll get to
Oh
that later.
man. Oh
Um,
man.
but yeah, Alex Albon, he did a big old shunt, and it was enough that it broke. I think they said it broke the gearbox in half.
Oh my God.
There's a whole big
Oh
hole in the chassis, and I think they ruined the power unit too.
yeah.
So they apparently had to ship that car back to England
Mm-hmm.
because they could not fix it on track.
Yeah.
And Logan Sargent had a good old birthday present for Alex Albon
Mm.
and
Mm.
gave him his car. I mean, do you think he said? I mean, if I was if I was Logan Sargent, I would have been like, "Here, happy birthday, I guess." Put a bow on it. Like,
I mean, like, okay, if you're Logan Sargent, real talk,
yeah,
you're questioning a lot of things about this arrangement and relationship at the team, right? Like,
yeah,
that is gutting, right? I don't,
yeah,
granted, Alex Albon is definitely the better of the two drivers, and he
right,
had a better shot at getting some points, right?
hmm,
And he's just more consistent with his finishing, right?
right,
And it also allows the team to gather much needed crucial data about like the configuration of their car and how it relates to the simulations, right?
right,
But man, that sucks. I'm
hmm,
sure he's just thinking like, okay, like he's probably already kind of on the fence about whether or not he thought he had a real shot at being on the team next year. But right now, I don't I don't know. This would just shatter, I think really make a big dent in the relationship between me and the team if I were him.
yeah. No, I agree. I mean, I Elizabeth did a great job of explaining sort of the reasoning behind it,
Hmm.
and like, it's true. Like there is that difference between it's like you have your driver, your fast driver, and then you have your driver that brings in the money. That's not always the same with every team. Like it's not always the same like dynamic.
Right.
But a lot of
Right.
times, especially with the lower teams, that tends to be the case. Definitely the case with Haas, where you had Mick Schumacher and you had Nikita Marzespin.
Hmm.
Um, but yeah, I think I understand James Vowell's choice to prioritize the performance of the team. And I mean, like, if your teammate is the one that's outperforming you most of the time,
Hmm.
I mean, if they have to make that decision because, like he said, like points are going to matter later on, especially in the bottom. So I get all the reasoning. It
Yeah.
definitely does not. It definitely doesn't feel.
Right.
It doesn't feel good from a fan's perspective.
Yeah.
And I think too, on top of that as well. I think that it's fair to say that like we need to figure out how to. Um, we need to figure out how to figure this out. You know what I mean? Like,
That's
we need to
beautiful.
figure out how to I mean, like what are we gonna do? Like there has to be some sort of contingency in the sport
Yeah,
that can help prevent something like this happening in the future. Like whether it's like a loan fund or like an emergency fund. Like I know that there's
that's a
always
good point.
opportunities that like teams will exploit that, right? But like, I mean, it just sucks that a team is incapable of bringing a car
Right.
to the track because of their lack of spending power, which seems crazy because you thought like Williams should
But
had a lot in their budget, right? Because they were right at the bottom at the beginning of the year, like they weren't like way up there, so
yeah, I mean, but there's also the cost cap too, right? Like, and this is, and guys,
right.
Gabe and I, we've been talking. I think we need to have a really deep dive episode about the cost cap and design restrictions because I think what we're seeing, we're in an era of Formula One where we're seeing two like opposing forces, right? Very strong opposing forces. It's kind of like the cost cap is like the unstoppable force, and then
Mhm.
the design restrictions are like the immovable
The
object and what
immovable
happens
object,
when
yeah.
they meet, right? And it's kind of like you can't do both, right, at the same time because that's going to create an environment where it's going to be really hard to play catch up for a lot of people,
Hmm.
and I think that's what we're seeing. But I digress. That's another episode. But yeah, I mean that's a good point. There's a cost cap, but it's they're working with the same funds and the same time as everyone else, but they just don't have the manpower. They don't have
Yeah.
like I mean we all saw a lot of the articles from this last week that the race put out that like Williams has been they have an Excel master sheet for their inventory. Like this is bad. Most other teams are
Yeah.
using SAP or some other kind of model-based systems engineering tool, right, to like capture all of these bits of information and make sure things are curated in a way that you know where things are at any given moment, right?
Hmm.
So to have to like introduce that mindset to a team over a winter and to try to produce two chassis and you don't have enough time to produce a third one, like, dude,
Yeah.
it's that they're I think there's only one way to go for the team at this point, and that's up.
Yeah, yeah, I feel like this is pretty low.
Yeah, it's pretty low.
I think the only other lower moment they may have had was when they didn't have a car to show up at the
Oh yeah,
testing session at the
yeah,
beginning of the year,
yeah,
that's pretty low.
yeah.
Um yeah, well, regardless of, why this happened or the reasoning behind it, this is the reality. And as it happens, Alex didn't end up, pinning the wall. Like he took care of Logan's car enough to where he made it home at the end of the Grand Prix. So,
Hmm.
so that's good. Because that would have been terrible if he had just crashed Logan's car, and it's like you lost both of them.
Yeah.
So good on Albon for at least being able to get through that okay. And yeah, well, speaking of practice, I mean that's pretty much where that incident happened.
Yeah.
They were dealing with a lot of wind on the track
Hmm.
throughout practice sessions, so it's pushing a lot of people into turn 10. Mercedes really was not having a good time.
Not at
They were
all.
understeering like
Yeah.
crazy. And but Ferraris showed some good pace, and so I was eagerly anticipating this qualifying session. So
Hmm.
let's move into qualifying. How was qualifying for you, Dries?
I mean, I thought quality. How I am, man. I'm a Saturday stan. Like qualifying is where it's at, bro. It is so focused. It's so fun. But I think we were at a point where we thought some usual suspects would make it into Q2, Q1, but ended up
Mhm.
not making an appearance there. I think Lewis he qualified. I think it was P11. So he got
Mm.
knocked right out by Stroll. I think who came in during Q2.
Oh, it was Yuki.
Or Yuki was it? It was
Yep.
Yuki who knocked him down. Okay.
Hmm.
And I think it was like the 1-2 punch of Stroll and Yuki because I think I recall Stroll coming in and like he just went right up the standings. But um, I think one of the biggest surprises from qualifying is Danny Ricciardo. Um, I
Getting
think
his
we're
lap time
gonna
deleted. Hmm.
yeah, he had his lap time deleted. Yikes! I think we need to have a corner of this pod that we now call the Danny Shrine or something like that because and like burn some incense for our boy because we need to get something back. We need to get his mojo back because I don't know what's going on. I think
Yeah.
this does not reflect well on his ability to move up to Red Bull, because I think that's his goal, right? To move to Red Bull next season. It's not
Yeah.
happening right now. I can tell you, of the V carb stable, right? Of the Lawson, of Lawson, Ricardo, Tsunoda. Tsunoda is the one I think who deserves a shot at going to Red Bull.
Yeah. Hmm.
Tsunoda is, I think, highly underrated, and I hate how people are slandering my boy, like, and talking about like, oh, he's got a temper and everything. But it's like, but people like that. I don't understand that. People like that from Max. People like
I
that
am
from Fernando.
slowly, yeah, I am
You know,
slowly feeling the Sonoda tsunami. Okay.
yeah,
The
yeah,
tsunami of
yeah,
Sonoda
yeah,
fan is hitting me
yeah.
because seriously,
He's
like
so reliable, dude.
he is, yeah, I mean, he is consistently finishing points
Yes.
finishes. And he has almost for his entire career. I mean, there were some instances. I
Hmm.
think it was him and Gasly. Like his favorite finish was 11, like so just out of the
Yeah,
points. But I feel
yeah,
like that was a result of the car, not him. I think
yes, agreed.
Yuki feels like one of the more consistent finish drivers that I've come across. Like his finishes are really consistent,
Yeah,
and he puts in a tremendous amount of effort. And I mean, yeah, like he's got an attitude. I think it's just one of those things where it's like, the driver has a lot of adrenaline,
yeah.
in the car. But like, you know say what you will, like he has it, he I think he gets a temper, he gets kind of intense, but I've never seen him do anything really
He's
deliberately malicious or reckless. Like he's
I'll
just kind of like in the moment.
Yeah, I'll tell you what, he's never shoved his own team, like his his guy
His
in the
trainer,
garage.
yeah.
Yeah, the trainer. Yeah, thank you.
Yeah.
He's never shoved his own trainer in the garage, right? But Stroll
Yeah.
does that all the time. Stroll bends
Or
it.
like,
He's like, I
yeah.
crashed on the wall. Like, what are you?
Yeah, which
Like,
that
come
still
on.
bothers me. I saw some people trying to defend that, like oh,
No,
like why is this team asking you? It's just like
they
because
can't
when those
see.
things happen so quickly, it's like yeah, the world feed is not immediately on them. All they see is that his car has stopped.
Yeah,
Like they're just like hey, like are you okay? Like can you keep going? Like they thought maybe he just like kind of cut the corner or maybe something
right.
cut out. They don't know. And so like I think that it's just it's a weird reaction. It's like in
Yeah,
that moment you want to give across like as articulate and accurate information as possible,
hundred
not a
percent.
sarcastic comment. So yeah, I'm thinking Yuki. I think definitely Yuki deserves that shot. I think he continues to show it unless Danny Ricciardo has some late season surge or something and like kind
Yeah.
of pulls ahead. I don't really see that happening. And like I said, I was thinking about this too. I'm really upset that the RBs, the V carbs are not as fast as they were because I want to see
Mm-hmm.
them on track. They look so
Mm-hmm.
good and
Mm-hmm.
I want to see them,
Mm-hmm.
but they have to be in a place where people are worth watching.
Yeah. I mean, at least you see
Um,
them. Sauber can take a note out of their book.
oh yeah, God. Well, so we're going to talk about Sauber. I have some thoughts on that.
Oh, one last
But
thing I want to say about Yuki, by the way.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
And we can just put a pin in it after. Yuki, I think he needs to get out of the Red Bull like
Mhm.
organization. They don't respect him. I don't think they
Yeah,
value
I
him.
think so. Yeah.
I think they treat him like they friend zoned him, right? Like Red Bull is like that really like the girl that like a lot of people like in high school, right? And Yuki just keeps getting friend zoned, you know, like kind of keep him around, you know.
Well, he's this sort of like, I mean, yeah, he's sort of like that. I mean, he's like that friend that like is always sort of there for you.
Yeah,
Even though
yeah.
like even that like you don't have as much a fun time hanging out with them, but they've never left you drunk at a bar or something because they wanted to go home,
Right.
or whatever. Like Yuki's the guy you
Yeah.
call because you know that he's just up playing, whatever, like
Yeah.
Forza or something, and you're just like, hey dude, like yeah, you come pick me up, and he's like, oh yeah, sure, that's fine,
Yeah.
and like
He's
yeah,
not getting the
I would
same he's not getting reciprocal love in the relationship,
yeah,
in short. That's what I'm trying to say.
I think it's gonna be a thing that if Yuki gets an opportunity to be in a more competitive car and then he starts winning, I think Red Bull will probably try and take credit, or act like, oh, like we nurtured him, blah 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 blah. It's like you guys didn't do crap, you didn't do
Mm.
shit for him. So yeah, I agree with that. Well, qualifying was topped by Max. His pole time was a 1:15.9. It was the only driver to break into the 1:15s ever, but it was only 2/10 up over Carlos, which
Mhm.
it's a fair amount, but it's not as much as we've seen Max
Yeah.
do before. And I think the top five were covered by I think only like 4/10 of a second. So
Mhm.
pretty close field considering.
Yeah, absolutely.
So the stage was set for another, Max dominant, race, until until
Until
until the
lap three,
race.
until the race started.
Somebody really put the brakes on that one.
Oh, ooh, insert.
Mm. Mm.
But yeah, no. So the race gets started, y'all, and things are hot. Things are hot in the land down under, where
Hmm.
Vegemite is a staple in every Australian home. And we see just like Carlos kind of he gets a good start, and he's up there. He's up there with Max.
He's keeping with him, yeah.
He's keeping up with him. You're like, oh man, yo, this Ferrari's got some. Got some. He's got the juice, man. It's got some
He's not
juice in
letting
him,
him. Yeah, he's not letting him pull away.
Yeah,
Yeah.
he's like reeling him in, and then he gets an overtake on him, and then you're just like,
Oh,
oh,
that overtake was
oh
like,
my, it was,
ooh, I was
oh
like,
yeah,
yeah. I was
yeah,
like pumping the
yeah,
air. I'm like,
mm-hmm.
that's how to do it, because as we noticed, like, right, that now they have this thing where after the first lap, they activate the DRS zone.
which is brilliant. This is what it should have been from the beginning because you get DRS used to not activate until 3 laps in, and by that time, Max has like a 10-second
Yeah.
lead.
Right. Yeah, basically. Like,
He's
he's
just like,
already,
well,
like,
this doesn't do anything for me.
yeah, he's already
Um,
just, effed off down the road.
Yeah,
So,
yeah, and just checked out. And then we see some weird things start to happen with Max, right? So he gets overtaken by Carlos, and then you see, like, I don't know, like Max definitely went wide on one of the turns, right?
yeah, it was
And
what was it? The exit of the start finish straight, I think. He kind of
I think he
understeered. Yeah.
yeah,
Understeered a little bit, and then
yeah,
that's how Carlos was able to capitalize.
yeah. And so you just see Max continue on, and then like his car starts slowing down, right? And then you start seeing a
Smoking.
puff of smoke, and you're like, "Oh my God, is this a power unit failure?" And then you start,
Yeah.
you start-
Yeah.
like, "Oh my God,
Yeah.
like, is this
Ooh.
exciting? What's
Yeah.
going on here? Like, what?"
Yeah.
And then you just see more smoke, and then you hear Max come on the radio. He's like, "Guys, the car feels loose. Like something's not right." And then just puff of smoke, has to pull it into the pit lane, and then as he slams on the brake to get into the pit lane, the rear right tire, like the brake drum, just like blast out to the side, which was
Yeah.
insane. Like, could you
Mhm.
imagine if someone had been there? That would have been gnarly,
It's
like not
intense.
good.
Yeah.
And our boy
Um.
Max was DN. He was out of the race.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, well. Yeah,
Oh,
look
how
who
the
decided to
turntables
show up.
have.
My old friend here, mechanical failure. How long has it been? Like it was apparently the last
Man.
time Max had a mechanical failure was at the Australian Grand Prix 2 years ago. In
Dude,
2022 is when he had it.
dude, man.
Which is just like, I mean, for one thing, I'm just gonna say it, like that's an
Yeah,
impressive reliability run for a car and a
absolutely.
manufacturer. But it's like right here it proves that like the Red Bull organization is not impervious to
Yep,
reliability problems.
100%.
It happens to the best of them. It happened with Mercedes during their dominant era. It happens.
Yeah,
You're right. So it just decided to strike Max. And the thing is and this is gonna sound weird, okay? And maybe it's a little patronizing, and I apologize, but I think this is good for Max. I think that
oh
he
yeah,
needs to go through these kind of things, right? It's
hmm
part of the like sort of development process for any sort of driver.
yeah,
Not to say that he hasn't had disappointing mechanical failures in the past. He definitely has. But when you go 2 years winning 2 championships and you just don't have anything like that occur to you or
yeah,
happen to you, you get more complacent
hmm
and more settled into your position, and so
right,
you're not as prepared for when these things happen in order to handle it better, to know how to move forward from it. You're
hmm
not given that opportunity. So now Max has a chance to sort of go through that again,
yeah,
which is, I think, good. I mean, it's good for us as fans, right? Because we get to see a race that's won by not Max. But it's also good for Max from a standpoint of like, yes, it was a disappointment, but it was also an experience that he can take forward, and so he can learn with the team, like, how do we prevent this from happening later? Like, what he can feel the signs so that he knows what it feels like when something like that happens, if it were to happen again,
yeah,
and be able to react accordingly. So
yeah.
so yeah, I think it's something that I think it's something that Max should be able to take some experience from.
So, as we're, the other Red Bull driver, you have Sergio Perez. He just was not able to eke out the performance out of that car like Max was.
No.
Um, dude, it just really speaks to like how freaking good Max is, man. Like he takes that car like it's a lemon and just like squeezes every single bit of juice
Hmm.
out of there. It's
Oh yeah,
amazing.
yeah. I
And
mean,
Perez just isn't able to keep up. It's wild, dude. Like I
right.
remember the broadcast, they were saying like every 5 minutes or so, they're like, of the top six runners, Perez is the slowest. Like he's not even catching up with these guys, right?
Mm, yeah,
Like that says a lot about just Max's
right.
ability.
Yeah, they did say that Red Bull anticipated that this race is going to be tough for them because of tire degradation,
Yeah.
because it's pretty punishing on it. So I mean, it's tough to say whether or not Max would have encountered some tire problems if he would have been able to continue. Because I mean, the Ferrari were on it, like they were just
Absolutely.
their tires were locked into place. They were working.
He looked good.
So yeah, I don't know. I mean, because there was a moment where Perez pitted, he gets past Fernando Alonso, and then he just does not move from there. Like he just cannot. He
Hmm.
doesn't like Alonso sticking from behind him. He's not capitalizing on those fresh tires to move down the road. And yeah, it was just pretty clear he just wasn't
Yeah.
going anywhere. That was as high as he was going to reach. So um, yeah, I'm wondering if this is just going to be looking like another sort of middle of the road kind of milk toast, you know, um, series of performances from Perez.
Hmm.
Even just considering the fact that he's still in a Red Bull,
Yeah.
right? Um, but and he's still kind of finishing in pretty high places, but like it's all
Yeah.
relative, right? So. Yeah, I guess we'll see. But let's not talk about Red Bull anymore. Let's talk about who we want to talk about. Okay, which is the Scuderia.
La
Um,
Scuderia. Ferrari. Bro.
yeah, I
Oh my
mean,
God. Just can we just give a round of applause?
which
Like, dude, I
claps
mean,
for the yeah.
we have said like Carlos Sainz is one of my favorite drivers. Like,
Uh,
honestly. Like, I think after Lewis, like Carlos is up there pretty high for me. Like
yeah,
he just because like him and Max came in at the same time, right?
yep.
They both started on Toro Rosso, and it's interesting to watch like their career trajectories, right? And every team that Carlos has gone to, he has gotten results. He has been consistent. He has performed, right?
Mhm.
Like,
Yeah.
and yo, the smooth operator has delivered, bro. Like,
Yeah, once
all
again too.
appendicitis,
Like
what?
yeah, that's the crazy part, right? Like he still had his bandages from the surgery like
Yeah,
on his body and he was just like in there performing the car. I wonder how much does an appendix weigh? Like is
was
it
actually just looking that up.
like for real, like
The
how
average
much weight is he
appendix,
saving?
6.4 grams apparently. Well, let me also check another place because that might not be entirely accurate. Um,
I was gonna say, I mean, if it's around that amount, I mean, like, what was it? I was watching one of, I think it was one of Alanis King's episodes, or one of her things where she was talking about the Porsche 911 and how on the GT3 for the Porsche 911,
mhm.
right, it's all about weight saving, right? So they're just like stripping all the stuff out of the car. They take the like enamel badge off of the Porsche racing, like off of the GT3, and they put a sticker there because it saves them like 1.2 grams or something. So
Mm,
like 6 grams of weight, I mean, it might not
okay,
seem a lot, but
that's
like,
true. That's true.
that can help. Any
Yeah.
little bit helps. So like is this the secret? All of a sudden, like
Yeah.
everybody's having
Yeah.
emergency appendix
Oh,
removals so
dude.
they can
Oh,
shave
dude.
weight. I don't want. This isn't a good precedent. Like, what are we just gonna have brains attached in like
Oh.
liquid jars controlling the cars in the future? Like, what's this gonna turn into?
Oh, so is that the the appendix removal appendectomy? Is that what it is? Is that
I
what it's
think so.
called?
Yeah,
Okay.
appendectomy. Yeah.
Is that Formula One's version of the of baseball's Tommy John surgery? That's where pitchers like get like they get like a ligament removed and they can throw like
They
even
can throw it.
crazier. Yeah,
Yeah. Um, yeah, I don't know, maybe. Although it didn't really help Alex Albon that much when he had it happen to him. So, um,
that's true.
but yeah, incredible performance from
Incredible.
Carlos.
Just
Great way to come back. I mean, just like so good. I'm so happy for him. I'm also
also,
happy for Charles. Like even though like he finished P2, like he's still like a Ferrari 1-2 is pretty amazing, pretty
mm,
special.
can we just hum the Italian national anthem for a second? Da, 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 da.
Yeah, I was so excited.
It's so
I love
fun.
that. It's so dramatic. It's
Yeah,
so flavorful, and it
yeah.
just has that moment where it's just like bum 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 bum, bum, and it just like builds up again. It's like yeah, like God, I love it. That was such a welcome
Yes.
change of hearing
Hmm.
like a national anthem. I think I still think I have the one stuck in my head. I still think I have the not the British one. Oh no, it is the Dutch
I think
national
the
anthem.
German one.
No, or maybe it is the German one. No. There's what's the one that's like da 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 da. Is that the Dutch one? I could be wrong.
Oh, the
I usually just turn it
da da
off.
da 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 da. That one?
Yeah, I don't.
Yeah,
I just
I
usually
can't
just
remember.
turn it off. Like
Yeah.
I can't.
Yeah. Ugh, Max
Um,
one off.
yeah. Anyway, but yeah, like great job for Leclerc. Great job for the team. Um, and it's really special when a driver who is technically without a race seat for the
Dude.
next
Ugh.
year wins stuff. I mean, like, is it possible that this year we sort of see a Carlos Sainz like world championship, kind of
Yeah.
like
Oh.
how like Damon Hill, like
Oh.
he was like immediately ejected from Williams like
Mm-hmm.
before the season, and then he just went on and won a championship. Like, you know, could be the thing that happens. I mean, I don't know. I'd be cool with it.
So
As soon as Max Brake had the failure, I looked at the top five and I'm like, yep, any of those drivers winning, I will be happy with.
yeah. Yeah. Dude, what
Yeah.
do you think, real quick? Um, do you think if Carlos were to win, were to just go on a tear this year, right? And to
Mhm.
win the drivers' championship, um, do you think Ferrari would try to like renegotiate and maybe give Leclerc the boot, even though he signed through 28? I mean, that's a long contract
Uh,
that they
it
they
is a
signed with
long
Charles.
contract. Yeah,
Like,
that is.
because if you think about it, like honestly, Carlos has been the one delivering for Ferrari over the last like
Recently, yeah.
2 years.
Hmm.
Yeah, like I don't know what's going on with Charles.
I don't know. It's a good question. I would say it's definitely a possibility.
Yeah,
Um, Considering that you know, like Hamilton signed with Mercedes and then all of a sudden, nope. Like, nope, he's driving for Ferrari. So like contracts are just sort of, I think they're kind of preliminary. I think they seem like they can be pretty easily broken in Formula One, provided you have enough money,
mm,
which Ferrari certainly does. Um, I think that if Carlos Sainz does not get a race seat by the end of this season, it
oh
will be a
man,
travesty.
criminal.
Like I mean, Perez managed to get in just under the wire. Like he got a race win, like right at that last race in 2020 to save himself his career.
Yeah,
But yeah, Carlos has proven to be the only driver that has been able to beat Max in a Max dominant Red Bull era. So,
yeah.
um, yeah, I think it's worth I think it's definitely worth the consideration, but I mean I don't know. I have this thought that maybe maybe he'll just end up getting swapped up by Red Bull. Like maybe they'll just dump Perez and will pick up Carlos
That's
because
possible.
as we said, he was in the Red Bull circle. He jumped in with Toro Rosso, right?
Yeah,
He and Max were teammates before. They were their first like teammates in F1 together.
yeah.
So yeah, I mean, I guess that'd be possible. At least if or if Max leaves to go to Mercedes for whatever reason. I don't
Hmm.
understand those rumors. Like I don't get
Yeah.
it, but whatever. If they're rumors, if that happens, then yeah, I think like Red Bull could be a good place for Carlos to go. At least if they, as long as they stay relatively competitive. Um, and I mean, yeah, I mean Mercedes, I guess. I don't know. It would be weird if he was pushed down into a lower team that like didn't couldn't keep up or
Dude.
wasn't fighting for wins. I mean,
Yeah. Isn't it
it would
wild
be
to
a
say
downgrade.
Mercedes would be a downgrade, like a lower team? I mean, it's
It
true.
is weird.
They are squarely midfield now. Speaking of
Let's
which,
talk about
let's
him.
talk
Yeah.
about Mercedes. Let's talk about the midfield.
Hmm.
Yeah, this was a trash weekend for them. Just
Hmm.
honestly, what's the meme where they just ball it up, throw it out, where it's
Just
just
yeah,
like
yeah,
it's
yeah,
gone. It was trash. Like from
yeah.
free practice through quali, through the race,
Yeah,
gutting, just gutting.
yeah, yeah. I mean, Lewis retired the race with a mechanical failure. His engine just gave up,
Oh, did
just
you
like
hear the
done.
audio of that? Oh, that was
Hmm.
rough. It was like,
Yeah, it was just
just done,
done. Yep, just done.
gone.
No pomp and circumstance, just
Yeah,
done. Yeah, and George was, trying his best to kind of hold out for, for his, for the rest of the team. But then, yeah, he had that last lap crash, and yeah, Mercedes just their entire race weekend just completely in the dumps.
yeah. So
Um,
about the last lap crash, let's put a pin in that for our final notes because we got
yes,
some thoughts.
right, yeah, for sure. Yeah, I don't understand why people are still thinking that Max wants to race for Mercedes. I mean, if this is for money,
It's
then that would be the only reason I can imagine. Because from a competitive standpoint, I mean, we know like you cannot bounce back in a season like that strong. You know what I
yeah,
mean? Like so,
yeah,
like what is Mercedes going to do for next year? I mean, I'd be willing to bet that they're going to have at least another year and a half or so of
yeah.
rebuilding before they can really be
Yep,
competitive again.
yep. I would not expect to see Mercedes like in the conversation until 2026.
Probably not.
Yeah,
Probably not. I think 2026 could be a linchpin for another, era of dominance from a team, but who
yeah,
knows? Like, who knows what that could be? It could be
yeah.
just Red Bull again. Like, we don't know. It's tough to say, but yeah, I don't know. It's really weird. And apparently, also Alonso is being considered for a Mercedes seat,
How do you
which
feel about that?
I also don't understand, because the Aston Martin's been doing better than the Red Bulls or better than the Mercedes.
Yeah,
So
the Mercs, yeah.
I don't get that either. So
I don't know.
who knows? I think people are just throwing stuff out there. You know what?
Yeah, and it's ridiculous too because it's like all this stuff that you're throwing out there does it pales in comparison to the offseason we just had with Andretti getting the boot, with Lewis
Uh
like
huh.
switching up to Ferrari, with
Yeah.
Hornergate, with all these other things that have been happening.
Yeah.
It's like what like this is don't even talk to me about this. That's not even important, you know?
Yeah. It's, I don't just just whatever. Like let's show up to class when you're ready to show up for class. All right.
Yeah, yeah.
We got this other stuff happening. Yeah. Well, let's just really quick. Let's talk about McLaren because they did actually have a really good weekend this
Yes.
weekend.
Yes.
Obviously they were fighting for that win. I thought maybe for a second that this was going to be a Norris win, possibly.
Hmm.
I thought he and Carlos were going to duke it out, but Carlos was just too fast, and
Yep.
those McLaren were quick, but they weren't as quick as those Ferraris. And
Yeah.
I think their strategy was a little weird. They did some pitting in some interesting places. I think that kind of set them back a little bit, but getting Norris to that third step on the podium and getting Piastri a P4 finish in front of his home crowd, I think was a good
Excellent.
result for the
Yeah.
McLaren team. And I'm also really happy to see that they're up in the top again
Hmm.
because it's taken so long. I mean, remember back when it was like, Jensen, Button, and Fernando. Was it Button and
Oh, the
Alonso the
Maconda days in
first? You
2015,
know,
2016.
yeah,
Yeah.
and they were just like it was just so bad, and like the
Yeah.
car was so terrible, and they were just right at the bottom. You're just like, what is happening with
Hmm.
McLaren? It's really nice to see that they've kind of come back up and towards
Yeah.
their competitive ways. So
Also, I hadn't realized that an Australian has not finished on the podium at the Australian GP. And because of that, I was rooting. I was hoping that Piastri would be able to like, nick it off of Norris, but just
mhm.
wasn't able to. But
Yeah,
really, yeah, really good finishing positions for McLaren. They are on the up and up. They're doing a good job. Also, the livery's looking a lot better than
it
when we
is. Yeah.
initially reviewed it.
Hmm.
I actually, it's starting to
Yeah.
rub off on me. Yeah,
I think it definitely looks better than it was last year. And
yeah,
I think that the IndyCar McLaren livery kind of puts it into perspective when you look at them side
yeah.
by side. You're like, okay, the only thing that I don't like about the McLaren in F1 is the Google Chrome stuff.
The chrome
If
wheels.
they
I
if they got rid of those chrome wheels and just did the orange thing like they do in the IndyCar, it would look
think it will.
so much
Yeah,
better.
there's too much going on
Um,
there.
there's just too much going on there. Um, S- Sauber. Can we talk about Sauber? What the hell is is going on with the nuts? Like
Oh,
why?
bro, it's so bad.
They're apparently deliberately doing 5 second
they
pit
they
stops
must be.
in order to make sure that
They
the
must
nuts
be.
go on properly.
This
Because
is
it's apparently
crazy.
some design flaw. They keep cross threading the
Cross,
nuts.
yeah, yeah. That is insane. How do you do like 3 races in a row? And like
I
also
know.
we've had 2 weeks between the races, so like I thought this would have been figured out. That this
I
is
don't get
really
it. I
bad. So
I
this is
don't get it.
systemic. It's endemic. So they gotta go back to drawing board and fix that because Bottas was doing like he was like driving the crap out of that car. He was doing actually a pretty decent job, right?
Mhm.
And then his pit stop, and then I could feel like
The
oh my
mechanics
goodness,
apparently
oh my
had
goodness.
spare nuts nearby in case the one breaks that they can swap it because it's such a bad problem. And honestly, too, and this is like honestly, here's the thing: like if your design flaw is so bad that you have to deliberately take a
Have
longer pit
spares, yeah.
stop, right? And have spares on hand to replace just in case that happens. Like, how are you then going to tell me that, like, oh, well, like, we only want competitive teams in the sport. And
It's
so, like, we can't
yeah,
take in Andretti. It's just like, you guys seeing the competitive
yeah.
teams that are in your sport right now?
hmm
Like, they're like literally face planting constantly.
And then, dude,
You know what I mean?
a
Like, shooting
couple
each other in the foot.
couple that with the rumors that apparently Sauber is not happy with um Bottas's salary. They're like, "Whoa, it's not really measuring up with the performance we're getting." It's like, dude, what do you mean?
The
Like,
guy's a
how do we have
multi-race winner.
yeah, how do we
You know what
have
I
like
mean?
the most visible car on track, but we're nowhere. No one knows what we're doing. No one knows
Uh,
where we are except for our pit stop blunders. What
Yeah.
about that,
Well,
homie?
and like also like Botas is a multiple race winner.
Yeah,
Like he's not just like a one and done kind of guy.
yeah,
You know what I mean? Like he's won multiple races. He was with Mercedes throughout that whole success. Yeah, he deserves to get a good paycheck because
yeah.
he is an incredible driver.
Give him the bag. Absolutely.
But I just think the car is bad, and I just
And they should feel bad.
they should feel bad.
Yeah.
They should feel really bad. And I think
Yeah.
now the whole situation of Audi having a full takeover of Sauber, it's like, yeah, you know what? Can we just like do it now? Like
hmm
this
Yeah.
is just like this is wasting time and resources,
Yeah.
quite honestly. Yeah,
It is frustrating.
it's really frustrating. Really frustrating.
So, I know there's always the Alpine team that we'll talk about, but I want to talk about V-Carb real quick.
Yeah.
V-Carb? I'm thinking
V-carb?
Arby's. Thinking Arby's?
They have the meats.
Pum, pum, pum,
Oh,
pum.
you know what? After that last conversation we had, I actually
Yeah.
went to Arby's because I wanted. You know how they used to
Ooh,
have that special? You get a bag of like 10 roast beef sandwiches for like as like a package deal.
that's a
You
lot of
remember that?
that's a lot of sandwiches.
I know, but I just remember my dad showing up with like a ton of roast beef sandwiches in a bag because they had like a special. It was like I think it was like $1 a sandwich or something. You just
Yeah,
get a bunch
yeah,
of 'em.
yeah.
I was really upset that they don't have that going right now. So like I had to overpriced roast beef sandwich that just did not settle with my stomach. So I
Yeah,
guess
yeah. I mean, the
they
curly
have
fries hit.
they have the meats, but at what cost? You know, um,
We have
really
the
honest.
we have the question mark meats.
We have the meat sweats. Um,
So with V-Carb, Arby's, V-Carbies. Yeah, like we said earlier at the top of the episode, Danny Rick is struggling, and
mhm,
I don't know what that means for his career. Um,
I don't know.
one thing I wanted to say when we were watching DTS, um, it's actually really heartwarming to see the relationship between Christian Horner and Danny Ricciardo. It seems like Christian Horner kind of like really looks at Danny Rick as like kind of his own son of sorts, right?
Yeah, I could see
And
that's probably right.
they have a tight relationship. Um, but I can tell you with everything going on, if Christian Horner gets kicked off the Red Bull team, I think Danny Rick is going to be gone too. If he continues his like season like he has shown
Yeah,
at least last 3
this
races.
is his opportunity. He
Yeah,
found his way back into the sport,
yeah,
having lost his drive.
yeah, yeah,
And I mean, I don't know if the car. I mean, I don't really think this. I mean, it might not be the car because you could look at Yuki. Yuki's getting some pretty solid
yeah.
finishes, right?
It's just confusing to me, right?
Maybe it's just the
But
setup's bad. Maybe he has a hard time coming to grips
maybe,
with it. I mean, I don't know.
but part of me wonders like if Red Bull did take the chance and give Danny the second Red Bull seat, would we see like a Daniel Ricciardo that's just like, oh yeah, he never left, which is
It's tough
wild.
to say. It's really tough to say. I mean, that test session, that's in a controlled
It's a
environment.
test site exactly.
There's not competitors around. You can focus. You don't have to think about who's around you. You can just focus in on the lap. So yeah, it's tough to say. I don't really know what is in store for Danny Ricciardo's career, but I mean, he's not a like I like the guy, If
Yeah,
it were
yeah,
me, I would just have Yuki and Danny in the Red Bull seats, and just have them do it. Especially if Max, goes off to, do whatever,
or
if
go
he
to
wants to go to
Mercedes.
Mercedes, like that's fine, have Perez, Perez take over like an Aston Martin seat or something, or
Hmm.
whatever. But yeah, no, I don't know. I mean,
Yeah,
we'll see. Only time can tell. I mean, who knows? It's tough to say. It's early in the season. We've only been a few Grand Prix in, so
yeah,
fortunes can change.
that's true.
So it just depends on how that comes out. So
And speaking of fortune, um, Alpine was able to find some uh,
a little bit,
in
a
qualifying.
sliver,
Yeah,
a sliver
it was a
of
silver lining of their
a
weekend.
Q2 performance that Esteban Ocon was like, yeah, oh yeah, we did it, guys, and I'm just like, dude, it's a Q2
Yeah,
appearance. Oh
I
my
mean,
god,
you got to celebrate the
really?
small wins. You got to
I
celebrate the small wins.
guess.
But speaking of which, bro, the social media manager of Alpine is on it, man.
Yeah.
Did you see what the tweet was?
No.
So when Max was trundling down the standings, right? Because he had to pull into the pit lane. Their social media manager tweeted out, um, oh, I don't want to mess it up. Let me just find the tweet. But it was effectively along the lines of double Alpine overtake on Max. You know, that's
Just sort of like it's like when
cool.
people take a snapshot of like a practice session where like Logan Sargent's on top or something like that.
Yep.
Um yeah. Well, I mean, Ocon is celebrating Q2 appearances, and Gasly keeps crossing the line, literally. He got 2 pit lane violations for crossing the pit lane exit line. Um, and I mean, like, first time, okay, yeah, I know it's sunny, and apparently it's like a dotted line at the end of the exit, but to do it twice, I don't know I don't know what's going on over there. I mean,
Yeah.
like, you think like like, oh yeah, well I can't cross that. So maybe it was absent-minded. I don't know, but like, you know, there's rules for these things, and they're there for people's safety.
Yep.
So it's like it's understandable. And I don't know what I don't know. I don't remember. I think it was it like a 5-second penalty that he got for that or
Hmm.
something? I think he got a 5-second penalty for crossing that line. So, you know, it's right. I mean, it's a real short pit lane exit, and it's a real right there at the end of that corner. So, you know, Alpine just continues to fall.
Fall
Fall on
flat.
its face.
Yeah, unfortunately.
Okay. Well,
So I think one of the things we wanted to talk about real quick was the big penalty
mhm.
that the patron saint of Gabe, Fernando Alonso, um, that he received. Dude, it was a 20-second penalty, dude.
Okay. Yeah.
That's huge. All right, so let's talk
So,
about it. Let's
all
talk
right.
about it.
Do you want to go first? I want to
Yeah, no,
hear
you
your
got. Yeah,
perspective first.
give your thoughts. Give your thoughts.
Okay. All right. All right. Okay. So if you don't know what happened, I'll explain it. Okay. So basically, towards the end of the race, Alonso was leading George Russell.
Hmm.
Okay, George was on fresher tires, right? And Alonso had been on his mediums for quite a while. He got the cheap pit stop in the
The VSC.
the virtual safety car area, and so he's trying to nurse those tires towards the end of the race, right?
Hmm. Yep.
Um, George was consistently catching him up, right? Getting down towards the end of the race, okay, and Alonso was thinking, okay, I got 1 lap left, right? So he's thinking strategically, what do I got to do? Well, he's thinking, what I'm gonna make an attempt to, approach turns 6 and 7 slightly at a lower pace so that I can go through and I can get a cleaner exit on the outside and
Yeah.
and and push the car out, right?
Just parking on
So
the apex. Right.
a switch up in strategy to try and give some strategy to offer some defense to approach this so that he can get a faster, hopefully gain a couple of tenths on Russell to defend, right? So what ended up happening was Alonso made this attempt, okay, and something he had made a mistake somehow, like something went wrong.
Yeah.
I think he said that he kind of messed up the exit, and so he had to compensate because I think he also was trying not to like fly into the gravel, and so he had to compensate for his mistake and try and regain some of that speed coming out the corner. This resulted in George Russell, who was anticipating that Alonso was going to be at a certain place and within a certain interval, right? He he came up really up on to Alonso's gearbox more suddenly than he anticipated. And then he lost, he basically got caught in Alonso's dirty air,
Hmm.
and he then ran wide or understeered into, unfortunately, into the barrier,
Yeah.
which
Well, into the
um,
gravel pit, and
into
then
the gravel pit
yeah.
and then ricocheted off the barrier,
Hmm.
and which I mean, the gravel pit did its thing. It's definitely slowed his car down. I mean, it was a bit of a hit, but it wasn't as huge of a shunt as it seemed like with the way he positioned at the end,
Hmm.
because he was like in the middle of the track kind of precariously on the side because the tire had kind of skipped underneath the car. And so according to the FIA and their data, okay, from what they have for the car, okay, so
Big data.
yeah, big data, right? So they they determined like, okay, Alonso basically they determined that Alonso had driven unnecessarily slowly and potentially dangerous through that section, which resulted in George Russell being thrown off his game and crashing, right?
Mm.
So okay, we'll just take a pause there. Okay, so yes. Did Alonso do something that was not anticipated from George Russell? Yes. You're
Yes.
in the middle of a race, right? He's not doing the he switched up his strategy on him, okay? Uh is Alonso responsible for the dirty air wash that was created by the car that George Russell ran into that compromised his line? No, he's not responsible for that dirty air. I mean, that's just
It's
what
physics.
happens, right? It's
Yeah.
physics. It's just what happens, right? Does Alonso have the right to change up his strategy in a turn to try and kind of get through? Yes, he does. Even according to the FIA, they said you have every right to do that.
Hmm.
Where they have the problem, right, is that they said that he was driving, it was unnecessarily slow, blah blah
And
blah blah blah,
erratic.
right? It's
Yeah.
like, okay, you can argue the minutia of that. Fernando Alonso did, he cited several instances where he's done similar moves in different places that didn't result in anybody crashing, but, he was also not penalized. He suggested that if Russell didn't crash, if Russell was able to anticipate that change, which you could make the argument that a driver under a racing, situation should be able to anticipate the unanticipatable. You expect the unexpected,
Hmm.
because like Alonso could have crashed. He could have had a loose wheel and then he comes up on his gearbox and unknowing. There's a lot of circumstances that could come around to put those
Yeah.
two drivers in that position. And so Russell not being able to react well enough to that situation to be able to save the car and save his position, or just be able to kind of skip off and keep going.
Hmm.
Um, that is why Alonso is what he's arguing. What Alonso's arguing is the reason why he got penalized. He believes that if Russell had not crashed, then he would have gotten through, which I think is fair. Where I really have the problem with this whole situation is the fact that he was given a 20-second penalty point,
That's
which
huge, man.
already I think is an overreaction. But
Yeah.
on top of that, he got 3 points added to his license,
Yeah. It
which
seems
I think
excessive.
it's an excessive overreaction to this situation. I mean, my perfect example of this is literally when Max brake tested Hamilton on the straightaway in Jeddah.
Yeah.
Okay, and he got 10-second penalty and no points on his license,
Yeah.
and they literally made contact, and
Yeah.
that was a clear deliberate violation, like a dangerous driving to me. So I just think
Yeah.
that I think the punishment doesn't fit the crime here.
I would agree. I think it was really harsh. I don't know if the points on the license was necessarily needed.
No,
Because we
I
have
don't think
seen
so.
instances like this. Could you say it's more of a racing incident? Like, yeah, I feel like it's more of a racing incident, but a little like, yeah, that was a little on the edge. So maybe we'll get a penalty just so people kind of clean it up and know to,
Yeah,
at least, give someone a chance, right? That sort of thing. But Yeah, I don't know. 20 seconds is huge.
It's
Man,
big.
they came down hard with that, right? And I
Yeah.
guess this kind of dispels the notions that Fernando has an insider with the FIA, right? Because that's always a rumor you hear, right? That people are like, "Oh yeah, well, Fernando, like, he's such a politician, he's got someone on the inside." And MBS was Mohammed bin Sulayem, not the other MBS from Saudi, but MBS was able to get that penalty overturned for him and at the Grand Prix a couple seasons ago and blah blah blah. But I don't know, whatever.
That's all just speculation. I
Yeah,
mean, there's no evidence that backs that up. And I mean, they say that about everybody. They said that about Hamilton. They say that about Max. They say that about
yeah,
any driver that has any sort of level of success. They say that kind of thing about. So,
yeah.
um,
Mm,
yeah, I think it was. I'm sure Aston Scott probably going to appeal at least for the points on the license if they can
yeah,
anything. So, yeah, I'm not particularly happy with it because I just don't think that it was warranted. And I think that if Russell had just passed Alonso, we wouldn't be having this problem, which seems crazy.
yeah,
I mean, at that point, I almost feel Alonso probably wished that he would have just stepped aside and just
yeah,
let Russell pass. So.
yeah.
All right, Drews. Well, let's get our podium vibes real quick. Our podium vibe check.
Yeah. Okay. So for me, honestly, it's gonna be really short. I think I'm really happy to see Carlos was able to capitalize. This was a really fun race to watch because of that. Um, what we witnessed today, everyone, was what the Formula One season would look like if Max were not a part of the equation. I think it shows that there are really good drivers, right? Because I think people are getting bored by Max winning all the time, and I get
Mhm.
it. Like I'm kind of in the same boat where it's just like, man, I want to see something different, right?
Right.
But you heard what Gabe said earlier. He looked at the top five, right? The top five drivers after Max was out of the race. And he's like, "Oh, I'd be so happy if any of them won." That's
Yeah.
so cool, right? Seeing the diversity of people who can win, like, and all the storylines, right? Like, oh, Piastri, his first win at his home race, that'd be awesome. Norris getting his first win finally. Sainz coming off of getting his appendix removed, awesome.
Yeah.
Leclerc,
Winning for Ferrari. Yeah.
the golden boy Ferrari, that kind of thing, right? Like it would be it would be cool if that's the universe we're in. But we at least got a sneak peek of that universe today, right?
Hmm.
So I was happy with the race and what we saw today. It was really great. I think just an overextension of the application of rules to the Alonso penalty,
Yeah.
but yeah,
Yeah. Yeah. I echo all of that. Happy with Carlos. And I think Max has work cut out for him because a DNF is not an easy thing to overcome in a season.
yeah,
That's 25 points less than he would have thought he would have had.
yeah,
So it's going to take some time to get that back. He's never going to get those points. So he's going to have to, really work hard to get the rest of them.
hmm,
I would say that if Max's season really starts to deteriorate, continuing, like if this is just the beginning, if this is the tip of the iceberg for his season and it starts to kind of fall down the hill, I think he would probably end up leaving Red Bull. I
yeah,
think between all the crazy stuff off the track and anything that happens on the track, I think he does. I don't think Max has a lot of patience. I think
yeah,
he's just ready to just, nope, this isn't working for me. I'm done.
mm,
He just always seems to operate that way. I mean, that's why he got into F1 so quick and so early now. It's just like, no, I want to race now. I can barely
hmm,
drive, but I need to be able to get in an F1 car. Like, you know what I mean? So yeah, I guess we'll see how the rest of the season shakes out. But yeah, no, great Grand Prix. I'm super happy with it. It was wonderful.
yeah,
So
absolutely. All right, everyone. Thanks for listening to F1 F Off. You can find us anywhere you listen to podcasts. If you want to hit us up, you can find us on Instagram, TikTok, YouTube, and X at F1 or F Off. That's all one word. You can email us at F1 or F Off podcast at gmail.com and give us a 5-star review wherever you listen to your podcast, especially in the land down under. That really helps us out a lot. And be sure to share with family and friends. And everyone, get your brakes checked.
yeah, get your brakes checked. All right, seriously, don't want that happening to you on the road. Drive safe.
Peace.
Peace.